What grade was she in here, 94?
Sometimes the yearbook of life closes too soon.
Here's your Brittany Varner. Oh, yeah.
We are left with grainy pictures and long lens grief.
It's awkward that they were all the nicest kids in school.
No way to measure a loss.
It's just weird that they were the ones to die.
The 4 little girls who died in that Jonesboro schoolyard were more than what happened to them. They were small-town kids with barefoot voices, a lot like these.
She was a kind-hearted person, and she cared about people.
She was a good basketball player and volleyball player.
You know that she would have kicked everyone's butt.
She was like friendly. She had a good sense of humor. She loved to smile.
She has pretty eyes, I know that.
She always carried her Bible to school.
The friends thought you might want to see where Paige Herring perfected her jump shot, and Natalie Brooks practiced her cheers. Stephanie Johnson sang her first sweet song right here, and Brittany Varner gave her a hug. She always had hugs for her friends.
And it's like really sad she's not there. She has a locker under me.
One she could reach. Brittany was just 4 feet tall. Paige could jump higher than that.
She had good form.
Yeah.
She could fake you out? You admit that to me?
Wow. And she got me a picture of her, one of the pictures that she had.
Holly Montgomery and Natalie Brooks vowed to be best friends forever.
She gave me a makeup bag.
For her birthday, the same day Natalie died.
Probably the most beautiful eyes, I have to say. I kind of had a crush on her, but almost everybody in school did.
Wait a minute, the two of you both had a crush on Natalie?
Kobe, admit it.
Yeah.
Michael? What? Come on, admit it.
Yeah. I know there's a bunch of people.
Okay.
These are kids who could make the faces on Mount Rushmore grin. But they think bullets got the best of them.
I mean, they stayed on A and B honor roll all year.
Stephanie thought she might like to be a nurse. Natalie loved the stars. Brittany always wanted to be Miss America. Paige just wanted a trophy at this month's sports banquet.
What are you going to miss the most about these 4 people?
Natalie's smile. Personality.
Yeah. Always lending a helping hand.
It was like our school was like a close family, like brothers and sisters.
Our children are like library books, with a due date unknown. These lives stopped at the start of their stories, but their stories live on in friends who can tell them.
There's Natalie Brooks.
For today, Bob Dotson, NBC News, Jonesboro, Arkansas. And the first explosion about 9:30 this morning blew out windows at the North Atlanta Family Planning Clinic. 10 people were in the building, 4 in the first floor doctor's offices. No one was hurt.
It only lasted for a few seconds, so you're basically shocked. You really didn't know what was going on at the time.
Where were you in the building and where was the explosion?
Oh my God!
This second explosion, about an hour later, injured a television photographer, an ATF agent, and at least 4 others.
Everybody get back, let's go!
That blast, felt for miles, tore through a dumpster on the other side of the building.
Whoa, we got a bomb that just went off!
Additional security was dispatched to all Atlanta abortion clinics, while the bomb squad scoured the area for another device.
Everybody get back!
No one has claimed credit for these explosions. Police say there were no calls to 911 beforehand, and clinic workers received no threats.
Our OR room and our recovery room is gone.
Oh, wow.
This is Susanna.
So it's inside as opposed to right outside the wall.
It's inside the clinic.
So do you think
our whole clinic is gone?
This same clinic was bombed 13 years ago in a different Atlanta location. But authorities are not sure today's bombs were actually targeting the abortion offices.
As far as the motive, I know a lot of you are assuming this is related to abortion clinic violence. That is definitely a possibility, but we are not ruling out the possibility of domestic terrorism unrelated to clinic violence.
Agents would not reveal what kind of explosives were found, but say they will check first to see if they are connected to last summer's explosion at the Atlanta Olympics. Perhaps most troubling, police say, was the timing of today's explosions. The stronger of the two set to go off just after federal agents arrived. Bob Dotson, NBC News, Atlanta. Rush hour for Marty Revelette, a man born with no arms.
People laugh. They see that foot and they don't understand what's going on, so they laugh at it.
Wednesday night, he was driving home in Durham, North Carolina, when he spotted someone trapped in this burned-out van.
I caught a red coat out of the corner of my eye, and I said to my wife, somebody's in that van.
86-year-old Elma Snedeker.
Friends of the car started smoking.
This whole thing was just black smoke, and every once in a while it'd shoot up in flames.
Flames so hot, they melted the battery, sizzled toward the gas tank.
And when I saw the flames, I said, this is it. If it hits the gasoline, I'm a goner.
And I just whipped my van off the side of the road and jumped out and ran back, started talking to her, trying to get her to unlock the door.
But it was sealed shut. The electrical system was dead.
And he said, open the window, and I tried to press the buttons, and I couldn't open the window.
I just stood, went like this. Wham!
His wife, Marie.
And he kicked it 3 times, and it shattered.
My object was to reach up into here and grab the latch to unlock the door. But because a foot doesn't work like a wrist, I couldn't get to it.
He said, honey, see if you can open the door. And it opened right up.
Did you ever think that, hey, I don't have an arm to pull her out?
Oh, I got other things that I could use to pull her out with. This'll work.
He got me right out. It's wonderful, wonderful. The most gorgeous thing I ever seen or ever been through.
Revelette sliced his leg on the broken glass.
I got a couple little marks on my forehead, and it's all.
God had a plan to save this woman. And he said, this is my servant Marty coming along. I'll use him.
Real heroes seldom say they are, but it's clear that someone very special stopped by that burning car. In 1994, the governor of North Carolina named Revelette Disabled Person of the Year. Quite an honor for a man whose parents, who were sharecroppers, put him in an orphanage because he had no hands to help them pick. Now he has his own business, hands-on landscaping.
The arms does not prove whether a person's normal or not. It's what he's got in his mind and what he's got in his heart and his spirit.
How do you feel?
Elma's daughter, Carol.
How do you thank a fellow like Marty?
Thank you, Marty. Thank you, thank you. I don't know how many times I could say it forever, and I'd still mean it. Here I am today, a healthy, wonderful woman.
With a face no longer lit by firelight, but glowing from the inside out. Smiling because of a man with no arms, but a lot of heart. For today, Bob Dotson, NBC News, Durham, North Carolina.
Wow.
Braden Kirchner likes to conduct music with his eyes closed so he can see his dream. He wants to join John Williams and Arthur Fiedler and Keith Lockhart, the select few who have conducted the Boston Pops.
What do you and Keith Lockhart have in common?
Both young and handsome.
And he's more confident than I am.
Never mind that Braden is just 18. To prepare for a career in conducting, he's learning to play every instrument in the orchestra. 12 so far.
If I gave you orders and I didn't play your instrument, you wouldn't take that order as seriously. No, 1, 2, 3, 1.
Okay.
The friends Braden tutors in Goose Creek, South Carolina know he's serious.
Good, but when you do it, don't go. Just go.
While they hung out last summer, doing what teenagers do, he worked 11 jobs.
I have it planned out. See,
He told his mom, Diane, he needed $10,000.
Which I will do
fast.
It's a little shock to me because at that time I just lost my job.
The boy with a dream had seen an ad on the internet saying fans could conduct the Boston Pops if they donated big bucks to the orchestra.
It's just money. And if that can buy you the thing that you wanted all your life, then it's worth it to me.
Braden could have had a fundraiser to get the cash. He did not. Instead, he mowed most of the yards in the neighborhood, worked the overnight shift at the Waffle House, delivered newspapers and pizzas. 6 months later, he had $5,000, half the money he needed.
There were a lot of people talking behind the scenes that when the time came, we would make sure he got there.
Please welcome in his Boston Pops conducting debut, Braden Kirshner.
Turns out that $5,000 was enough. Last night, the Pops performed in South Carolina, just down the road from Goose Creek, with a new guest conductor. Standing on that stage, Braden tallied up what his dream had cost.
All the hundreds of yards I mowed and the hundreds of cars I washed and all the late night jobs.
Is the bill a bargain?
I could buy a new car, but it would rust and break down in 20 years. And then this is something that I'll always have with me.
Oh, he'll have something more than a memory. The Pops returned Braden's money to help him pay for college. Some things aren't bought. They're earned.
My heart jumped out of my chest. It was the coolest thing I've ever experienced.
For today, Bob Dotson, NBC News, Goose Creek, South Carolina.
I wish I could do it again.
The crime was incredibly violent. Deborah Sykes, a 25-year-old newspaper copy editor, beaten, raped, and stabbed 16 times. Attacked in the early morning on a downtown street in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Her body dumped in this small, rundown park 20 years ago.
It was a very loud scream.
Witnesses identified 19-year-old Darrell Hunt as the killer, even though he did not fit the initial descriptions given police.
He's a robber, and a rapist, and a kidnapper, and a sadistic butcher.
There was no physical evidence linking Hunt to the crime, but he was convicted and sentenced to life in prison in 2 separate trials.
Your attorneys came to you at that second trial and offered you a deal that they said would be reasonable.
Yes.
Plead guilty and get off for time served.
Yes.
Was it tempting?
No, because I didn't commit the crime. And I thought it would be an injustice not only to myself, but to Mrs. Sykes and her family.
A decade ago, advances in DNA testing ruled Hunt out as the rapist. But since he also was convicted of her murder, he remained in prison for 18 years.
How did you keep the bitterness from sinking you?
Anger and bitterness eats you up from the inside. I wanted to live.
That's why he married April, his longtime friend, in a prison wedding 4 years ago.
He may not ever get out.
And if you'd never been able to be with him?
I have him in the next life.
She did not have to wait that long. An extraordinary sequence of events set forth the truth. Judge Andy Cromer ordered crime lab technicians to compare the DNA evidence with a database of state prisoners. That led investigators to this man, Willard Brown, whose DNA, they said, matched the semen taken from Deborah Sykes' body.
He's made a statement that he is responsible for the crime and he acted alone.
They found Brown in jail, serving 60 days on a parole violation.
Myself and Agent Williams took custody of him at 11:15. He was due to be released at 12 o'clock.
Hunt was not entirely free yet, merely released on bond, while detectives made sure he wasn't an accomplice to the murder.
Good morning.
What they found was astounding. Willard Brown had been identified in a lineup as a rapist before. Less than 6 months after Deborah Sykes was attacked, while Darrell Hunt was awaiting trial for his life, another woman was abducted just 3 blocks from where Mrs. Sykes was murdered. There were striking similarities between the two crimes. Both women were in their early 20s, both on their way to work in the early morning, both repeatedly stabbed. But the second rape victim survived and refused to press charges, so no one was ever prosecuted for that crime. In March 1986, detectives did interview Brown about the Sykes case, but mistakenly thought he was in prison at the time of the rape. So they let him go. Last November, Winston-Salem Police Chief Linda Davis told an investigator to check again.
He found that Willard Brown was released from prison in June of 1984, prior to the August murder of Deborah Sykes.
So Darrell Hunt spent half his life in prison because of a typo.
If we had had access to all the information, we would have known about Willard Brown before the first trial.
Sometimes it takes a long time to find the truth, longer still to accept it. Deborah Sykes' mother, Evelyn Jefferson, showed up at the hearing to dismiss charges against Hunt.
I do not believe in Mr. Hunt's innocence. And I believe that what you're about to do here today is set free a guilty man who's guilty of my daughter's death. And I
But Judge Cromer said the words Hunt had been waiting for all these years.
Today, we acknowledge a mistake was made. We will dismiss this case with prejudice.
Before Hunt left a free man, he spoke from his heart to Mrs. Sykes' mother.
As hard as it is for me, Miss Jefferson, I had nothing to do. Go. I know it's hard. People talk about closure, but there will never be closure because closure means you forget something. That was her daughter, so she'll never have closure. You just ask for a peace.
There are many victims in such a case, not just the people leaving this court. When our judicial system fails, all of us are victims. For today, Bob Dotson, NBC News, Winston-Salem, North Carolina.
Hey guys.
See the big guy in the Chicago Bulls jacket?
How you guys doing? Bob Love.
This is his rookie season in politics.
I'm Bob Love. I've been for Alderman of the 15th Ward here.
Folks in the Muppet Grill on the south side of Chicago know him better as Butterbean. The Bulls' leading scorer before Michael Jordan broke his records.
He's a rookie politician, but he's a all-star when it comes to dealing with problems.
Vote here on the 25th of February, man.
He's had more than most.
For over 45 years, I couldn't say one word.
His game had to speak for him because Love stuttered terribly. When he left the NBA with a bad back in 1976, his wife left him a note.
The note basically said that she didn't want to be married to a guy that couldn't talk, and she definitely didn't want to be married to a guy that was going to be crippled the rest of his life.
So she disappeared in Seattle with money from their bank account. Nearly broke, Love took a job in a department store cafe.
I had to start off washing dishes and bussing tables for $4.45 an hour.
Because anything else required the ability to speak clearly. As an NBA All-Star, Love had been making $105,000 a year.
A lot of players in the experience would come in, boy, they would see me in this little hat, apron, pushing this cart around. Man, I could always see them whispering about me. Wow, man, that's Bob Love, man. That guy used to be a great player, man. Look at him now.
His boss, John Nordstrom, noticed him too.
That is really neat. Now, if you do this
Offered to make him a manager if Love found a therapist who could correct his stuttering.
I felt that if I went out and got somebody, it was a drill that he'd been through many, many times before, and that wasn't going to work. If he found him, hopefully this time it would work.
That night on the bus ride home, Love saw a sign for speech pathologist Susan Hamilton, went in and recorded what he could for her evaluation.
I also made all for the defensive team.
He had a hard time even getting a word out if he was
Love
asked
wanted to do
be
more than merely stop stuttering.
He wanted to be a great speaker, but I don't know if he really truly believed it deep down inside that the stories of his life, or that he were powerful enough to move people.
I got it and I stretched it, made it round like a little basketball goal, and I nailed it on the
So
side
he
of the
began
house.
speaking in front of
Parents
school kids,
and school
practicing
teachers.
with a
School
pro's
teachers
dedication,
produce
2
more
hours a day, 3
professionals
times a
than
week
anybody
for a
in the
year.
world. You know, I really
Finally,
didn't
at
have
age
time. I was
45,
busy
his
doing
words flowed smooth and clear.
And for me to be here this morning and utter one word to you without stuttering makes me the happiest person in the world, because it's a dream come true, guys.
True to his word, Nordstrom made Love a manager. That led back to a job with the Chicago Bulls as Director of Community Affairs.
The famous Bob Love. Now, guess what? I yap for a living, you know. I talk for a living. What's the greatest feeling in the world?
Love makes 300 to 400 such appearances each year, many in inner city neighborhoods around his home. He shows up to talk sports, but over the past decade, he's listened to problems only a politician.
All right, man, you guys to vote for me now.
That's why he's running for Chicago's City Council.
As a sports figure, you're loved, right?
Yes.
Now you want to be a politician?
Yes.
Why?
Yes, I think the people are going to love me even more.
Ladies and gentlemen, Bob Love. He is already a legend. His jersey is one of only 3 the Chicago Bulls ever retired. Love's teammate, Norm Van Leer, still marvels at how his friend has battled back.
It's got to be a hell of a thing, man. It's got to be a hell of a thing.
Let me give you guys the magic touch. Let me give you the touch of love here.
Bob Love stands for all of us looking for a second chance. At 60, he tells kids,
Other guys could beat me playing, but you know, once I got into the classroom, and you see what happened?
Yes.
I'm the guy that made it.
after a great struggle against his toughest opponent, himself.
Give me a hug, brother. You're going to be great.
For today, Bob Dotson, NBC News, Chicago.
You're going to be great, okay? All right.
Uncover. What's the matter with 75? Why are the voices all alive? Hey! Oh! Let's go! Oh, 75!
These guys have been taken off Time's mailing list. Pappy Hill
Okay, Pappy, right over the plate.
is pushing 80. George Bakewell is 99.
Getting better and better, George.
You know, if Babe Ruth were alive today, he would be 2 years younger than George. This is Bakewell's 25th season, and he still rarely strikes out.
What's this one? Hey. All right, play ball.
Perhaps it's because he recently got married, and he went on his honeymoon in Switzerland, hiking.
Let me call you sweetheart, I'm in love.
I've been trying to keep up with George for years.
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Just great. A beautiful day.
It is.
At 87, he used to jump rope a couple of dozen times a day just to keep his blood pumping.
Want to see that little egg?
Now, he swings an 8-pound iron bat
Keeps the shoulders loose.
and rides a stationary bike 20 miles.
See you later, honey.
A fellow like that naturally attracts a following.
The kissing bandit, right?
Thanks, honey.
Some of the new guys would like to be in his cleats, but
I don't practice like he does. I smoke 14 cigars a day.
fans don't bother his new bride, Bonnie.
No, let him have him. I don't care. He's mine. They ain't gonna get him. Don't it look great? You got all these bats in the church?
You don't know anything about baseball yet? If I get that ball, hit that ball toward the fishery, good in, George, I'll be out for 40 feet.
Hey! Do you say 2 to 5 or 5 to 2?
5 to 2.
No matter, beyond this line is an endless summer.
Oh, say does that.
These two teams, the Kids and the Cubs, have stood together 3 days a week, 60 games a season, for 62 years. Some have been known to circle the bases faster than the scorekeeper could keep score.
Well, you know, I wouldn't be opposed to hitting the ball and fall dead going down to first base. I wouldn't be opposed to that at all. That's a nice way to go.
George Bakewell is from that generation of innocents for whom baseball is a game and not a bottom line. At season's end, he'll turn 100.
I've had a wonderful life.
For today, Bob Dotson, NBC News, with the Boys of Winter in St. Petersburg, Florida.
More from NBC's Bob Dotson.
Most of us have an old box or two tucked in the back of our closets. Some filled with happy memories.
He was a good leader.
And some with pain. Brad Zukroff has not gone through this box of his brother's things in 35 years.
My brother died horribly.
Marine Corporal Stephen Zukroff was blown apart by a landmine during the Vietnam War, the day after Mother's Day, his 21st year. 3 decades later, Stacy Hansen, a firefighter in San Jose, California, found something of Stephen's while vacationing near Da Nang. His dog tag, and a stunning story.
This is such a personal thing, and I couldn't believe that they're just lying in the bottom of some case.
A pile of U.S. military dog tags on display in a dingy Ho Chi Minh City museum.
It says we're all my American brothers.
Hansen could not leave them behind. So she bought the dog tags for about $2 a piece.
How did you know you weren't being taken?
Well, I didn't know 100%, and I thought the worst thing that would be happening would be that I would be contributing to their poor economy.
Standing there, sorting through all those rusting bits of metal, she wondered how they had been lost, and if there were more. So the vacation became a quest.
Did the Vietnamese people help you?
Absolutely. Yeah, they were great.
A taxi driver wrote her a note in Vietnamese explaining her search. It became her calling card. Hansen traveled all over the country for 5 weeks, cleared out a savings account, came home with 566 tags.
I didn't leave any tags that I saw. I bought every single one that I could find.
Why are you so passionate about this? A war that you don't remember, people you've never met.
So many of them were teenagers or young men, and they never had their life. So if I can bring some type of closure or healing to those families, I'm willing to do that.
Back in California, Stacy started having second thoughts. Finding all those GIs and their families seemed too daunting. So she put her pile of dog tags on a closet shelf. 6 months later, she pulled them down and make a few phone calls.
I'm not looking for, anything in return. All I'm looking for is an address to send this to.
She has already found 95.
Yeah.
Most live too far to visit. But Stephen Zukroff's brother is just an hour away.
Hi, Brad.
Hi, Stacy.
Nice to meet you.
These are not the moments in life many historians record.
You've seen the name, and now you should see the person. And that's
him.
That's my brother. So.
Well, I want to give you.
Oh, yeah.
Something.
Neither distance nor years have paled Brad's memory of his brother.
That's really amazing. Thanks. Thank you. That's sweet.
You're so welcome.
Torn, tarnished. Sometimes history has a way of finding us.
Let's come a long ways.
For today, Bob Dotson, NBC News, Santa Cruz, California.
What a wonderful thing she's been able to do. If you're a Vietnam
In Kodiak, Alaska, they hurry spring along.
A fine shot, Scrim, a fine shot.
Pebble Beach, it ain't.
Oh, you hear that clunk in the bushes?
But it is a golf tournament. One hole, par 70. That's right. One hole, par 70.
Wait, give me my longest club.
The Classic began nearly a decade ago, during a cold lull in the fishing season. Scrimshaw Matthew bet Pogo Good and the boys he could beat them in a game of golf.
Ready? Fire away there, Scrim. 4. You ready? 4.
Same rules as the Masters would apply.
Nice shot. Beauty. 4.
Sort of.
Now we dig.
Players are encouraged to carry an ice axe.
Ready? To your right. Okay. You're way too far.
Each of the 44 golfers has a caddy.
Come back down the road. To your left now.
Oh, you didn't tell me to bring my binoculars.
And a spotter.
Perfect.
Who stands a couple of 100 yards uprange to track shots.
Right over your head.
Good shot, good shot.
You see it?
I heard it land. It could have landed anywhere.
There's nothing fair about this fairway. Back there is the ravine of doom. Shank one over its side, it would take a howitzer to get you out. And then there are bushes and sleeping bears and ice fields and cliffs for nearly a mile. The course is practically straight up, 1,400 feet from the valley floor to the green.
Body block. Body block. We had a ball take off, and it probably went a mile. There's no way to... Just kept going and going and going. It was gone. 2-stroke penalty.
Fire the ball! Rick Lindholm, the only two-time winner, is the man to beat today.
All right. Another good one. Is that a bird's nest?
Pogo wants him to play with a white ball.
Out. That away. 1. And this little twig here. That's 2. 4 to here.
5. Hey, we made it
5. In the bucket. Yes!
Yeah! Hey.
I love it. I love it.
Scrimshaw Matthew shot a 22.
New course record.
But Rick Lindholm was white hot. He finished 5,000 yards, par 70, in 19.
Oh, not Lindholm! Not Lindholm! All right, what we're going to try to do is get out of the bushes.
Oh, yeah! Before they wake up the bears.
Yeah, stay right there. I might need a different club.
For today, Bob Dotson, NBC News.
Hey, guys, we got to play tomorrow.
At the Kodiak Classic.
Where's the rest of our group?
In Alaska.